You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season 2, episode 26, Rockin' the Rangers. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, and Fly the W on Facebook, or email us, flythew670@gmail.com. Crawly, happy Monday, and let's talk about the Cubs winning a series over Wrigley Field.
Yeah, it was a fun weekend, man. I'll tell you that much. I know it all didn't end the way you want, but win series and you're going to win the division. That's about as simple as it goes. And we had the Justin Steele party on Thursday, which was an absolute blast. Justin's a great kid. Got a chance to interview him, meet his family. Great people. I was at the game on Friday, and so that was a lot of fun. And so this was the first interleague series of the season. Remember, all 30 teams are going to play for the first time ever this season. So you're going to have a lot of these interleague matchups. And like I said, I was at the game Friday, but Stroman made his second start. That was his 200th career start. And let me tell you, he did not disappoint. From the moment he comes out from underneath that bullpen, he's kind of getting the crowd, amped up. He's just a lot of fun. And he went 6 innings pitched. He gave up only 2 hits, 3 runs, 6 Ks. Never in really too much trouble other than the 6 when he hit Josh Smith with a pitch. He got Marcus Semien to ground out. Smith advanced to second. Seager walked. Then he got Nathaniel Lowe to strike out. Walked Adolis Garcia to load the bases before Josh Jung grounded out to end the threat. But other than that, I mean, he just seemed in command the entire game. And I think this is what – I don't know why some free agents struggle their first year in Chicago. I can't say if it was because of the lockout. I know he didn't like that last year, but I would just say that it was absolutely just so much fun watching him pitch, so much energy. Whenever someone makes a good defensive play or anything, he's just very animated out there, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, he was a lot of fun to watch. I had a mix of the game on Apple Plus, and then also listening to Pat and Ron on 670 The Score. Good mix. Got coverage from both. He was really, really good. And I think it's an interesting comment you made, Crawly, about maybe some of the pressure, some of COVID. Maybe that had an effect on him, and he's kind of settling in, if you will, and being more comfortable being. And I think he likes the fact that he's the ace, right? I think he likes the fact that he's first in the rotation, and I think he thrives off of that.
Yeah, and what you really saw on Friday was a lot of strikeout. You saw some strikeouts and a ton of groundouts, right? And that's when you know Stroman's on. In this game, he had 8 groundouts and 6 Ks. Only the 2 hits and then 1 line out to center were the only balls to make it out of the infield. So that just shows you, you combine that with this defense, and that's what you're going to get. So per Elias, Stroman is the first Cubs starting pitcher with consecutive outings of 6+ shutout innings to begin the season since Mike Bielecki in 1991. Fourth starting pitcher in Cubs history to begin the season with 2 scoreless outings of 6 innings or more. Get this one, Dustin. He's allowed 1 or fewer runs in 7 of the last 9 starts, dating back to August 30th. His ERA in that span, 1.67. That to me is an ace. That's an ace.
You're right. And we talked about that a lot last year during the podcast, whether or not he was an ace, whether or not he could lead a staff. And I'll tell you what, if he continues to build as he was coming off of last year into this year, yes, he answered the question. Yes, he is an ace.
Now, Nathan Eovaldi was the losing pitcher, but he did a great job. This was a great pitcher's duel. Bottom of the 4th, Nico Horner, the straw that stirs the drink for the Cubs, singled for the Cubs' first hit of the game. Swanson grounded out to third, but Nico was out at second, but Dansby was safe at first. Ian struck out swinging, but Dansby stole second. Cody Bellinger hit one to right field, and the Cubs were up 1-0. I kept thinking, Dustin, that's one of those things that if the shift was in place and you're talking about a left-handed hitter like Cody Bellinger, I think that would have been an out.
Instead, absolutely right. Great point. Absolutely it would have been. No doubt about it.
Right. Goes for a single, and so the Cubs are up. And then the bottom of the 6th, the Cubs hit back-to-back singles by Tucker Barnhart and Nico Horner. Swanson hits into a 5-4 double play. But Tucker was able to, was at third with 2 outs when Ian Happ doubled the center. Bounced off the glove of Adolis Garcia. That was Cubs got a break on that one, gives them a 2-0 lead. Leiter and Fulmer come out of the bullpen, with Fulmer getting the 2-inning save, giving up 1 hit with 4 Ks. But Cody Bellinger hit an RBI single in the fourth, is 5 for 12 with a home run and 5 RBIs in his last 3 games after starting the season 0 for 11. That was after Saturday's game. So I know you like that, Dustin.
Yes.
And
Nice
Ian
bounce
Happ,
back.
yeah, nice bounce back. And then Ian Happ has hit safely in 5 of 6 games this season. So a good pitcher's duel. It was just an exciting game all around. And I can just say that I was there Friday, and I know a lot of people that were there Saturday and even Sunday, and the crowd was electric all weekend.
That's what I wanted to ask you. How was Friday? Great. Were you in the bleachers Friday? Where were you at?
Yeah, I was at the bleachers Friday. So it was the bleachers were rocking, and like I said, Stroman kind of helps pump that up too. So a lot of fun. And
how many beer bats did you see go by?
Oh, there's you know what? I heard they're starting to run low on them. So get your beer bats if that's something you're wanting, because those are becoming popular souvenir items.
Okay.
So get them while they're hot here. Now, the second game of the series saw Justin Steele take the mound. He struggled in the first inning again after giving Simeon to ground out. Corey Seager singled, Nathaniel Lowe walked to put runners at first and second, but he's able to get the next 2 batters out. In the bottom of the first with 1 out, Dansby reached on an infield single. Corey Seager threw it away, and Swanson advanced to second, then to third on a balk. Ian Happ hit a dribbler to first that allowed Swanson to score, and the Cubs were up 1-0. Now, in the top of the third, Seager led off with a double. Nathaniel Lowe flied out to left, allowing Seager to advance. And then Adolis Garcia walked, and Josh Young hit singled to tie the game at 1. Cubs retook the lead in the third on a double by Nick Madrigal and a single by Dansby Swanson to put the Cubs up 2-1. Wisdom hit his 3rd home run of the season to make it 3-1 in the 4th. And then Eric Hosmer drove in 2 runs in the 6th to score Mancini and Wisdom to make it 5-1. But the play that really got everybody talking, Dustin, was in the 7th inning, right? Trey Mancini leads off with a single to drive in Nico Horner to make it 6-2 in the in the 8th inning. And the Cubs, so when they added 4 in the 8th to make it 10-3, with 2 outs, Yan Gomes hit a solo home run. Madrigal and Horner hit back-to-back singles, and then Swanson walked to loaded the bases for Ian Happ. Now, Ian Happ hits a ball straight up the middle, scoring Madrigal and Horner, which, Horner's speedy, no doubt about that. But the Rangers center fielder, Adolis Garcia, kind of made a lackadaisical throw to second. Seager bobbled it, and Swanson never stopped running. He scored all the way from first on a single straight to the center fielder. He just beat the tag when he was called safe. He jumps up screaming and pumping his fist. And that's where you could really see Wrigley rocking. But seriously, what a heads up base running play.
Yeah, great on the bases. He's been everything and more, I think, Crawly. I couldn't be more pleased with how he has played so far to start his Cubs career. He's been better than advertised.
Yeah, they were laughing after the game. They interviewed a bunch of the different players. Patrick Wisdom said the energy is there. We feed off of it. We were doing that in the dugout too. We just know how important runs are in this game, and especially late in the game, you could put the game out of reach. So it's like he doesn't take plays off. And Ian Happ was kind of laughing a little bit because he hits that single and then he kind of turns back to first base to talk to the first base coach, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, this crowd cheers again, and the first base coach and Ian turn around and there's Swanson, sliding in. I mean, that never should have happened. So
never should have happened. Right?
That was absolutely great. So Steele went 6 innings and gave up 4 hits, 1 run, 4 walks, and 3 Ks. Keegan Thompson, Brad Boxberger, and Michael Rucker all came out of the pen. Thompson and Rucker each gave up a 1, but Steele has made a quality start in 5 of his last 6 outings, but had a 7-start streak of 5 strikeouts or more snapped. So the strikeouts weren't there, but again, efficient, not giving up runs, able to kind of get out of it. I wanted to put this tweet up. This is something, and again, talking about Marcus Stroman kind of being the ace here. This was a little exchange they had. Stroman said, Steele and the squad were rocking today. Great energy in the stands. Love to see it. And Justin Steele replied, just following your lead. Show me the way with a salute emoji. And Marcus says, all year, my dog. I mean, you just love that, man. That's just great stuff.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. They seem to be a really connected group. They're feeding off of each other, and as the quote there from Wisdom, feeding off of the crowd as well. So very cool.
And everyone contributed to offense on this game. Clearly when you score 10 runs, Trey Mancini had 3 hits. Horner, Swanson, Wisdom, and Madrigal each had 2 hits. Ian Happ drove in 3 runs, and Wisdom and Yan Gomes hit home runs. Texas committed 5 errors in the game, and the Cubs took full advantage of them. But I am going to tell you, Dustin, I was watching the game on Sunday, and, it was Easter Sunday. My mom asked me to run to the store to pick something up that they ran out of or whatever. And I'm listening to Pat and Ron. It was really Zach and Ron. Pat was doing TV for Marquee. And the one thing that Coomer said is, I will tell you this, after the sloppy game that the Rangers played on Saturday, he says, Bruce Bochy is going to have his guys ready to play. And they absolutely were. And I thought the Cubs played one of their sloppier games on Sunday.
Right. I'm not a fan as much as I love Trey Mancini. I don't like Mancini in right field. I don't know why Patrick Wisdom needed the start of yesterday off. If you're going to have Nick Madrigal in the game, I think have him DH at this point. He can't make that throw. He's having a hard time making that throw from third to first. If it's not very routine, he's putting out way too much effort. So there's a couple things you could question David Ross from that lineup on Sunday.
Yeah, it just there were issues, and series is in the bag. You're going for the sweep. Jameson Taillon was looking to bounce back from a rough debut, but to me, the offense, the defense, and the bullpen could not help him out. After a first clean inning, Taillon gave up back-to-back one-out singles to Josh Smith and Jonah Heim. This is going to be the story of the game. The bottom of the lineup for Texas really did damage. Runners at the quarter, Travis Jankowski hit a ground rule double to make it 1-0. Then Bubba Thompson reached on a fielder's choice, and this is what you're talking about. Madrigal makes a nice play. He snags the ball, and then he dives to third to try to get Heim out. But he didn't get the out, and then he tried to throw Thompson out. Bubba Thompson's extremely fast, and he threw the ball wide of first, and I'm glad, the first baseman didn't get injured on that one. Very dangerous play. But Heim scores and runners move up to second and third. I mean, that was one he should have put in his pocket, plain and simple.
Plain and simple.
And then Marcus Semien, this is the other one you're talking about. Marcus Semien hit one that Trey Mancini, I mean, he looked like he was doing the field sobriety test out there after I go to a Cubs game. I mean, he was just kind of weaving around, totally missed the ball, bounced off his glove, goes behind him, and that ended up scoring Jankowski and Thomas, and that gave the Rangers a 4-0 lead. That's not going to count as an error with those 2 runs coming in, but a halfway decent right fielder makes that play.
Yep, absolutely, all the time. I think Patrick Wisdom makes that play in right field.
I agree. And so Edwin Rios made it interesting. He had a 2-run blast in the bottom of the second, but that would be it for the Cubs on offense. In the top of the fourth, Jankowski reached on an error by Eric Hosmer, so that was the second error of the game. Again, I would have given it a third error with that Mancini play, but Jankowski steals second, then Bubba Thompson hits a chopper that goes over the head of Madrigal, and the Cubs were down 5-2. Now, if you ever seen Nick Madrigal and Patrick Wisdom standing next to each other, you'll notice a difference. And maybe, again, Wisdom being taller, bigger reach, maybe he makes that play. I'm sorry, I don't want a 5'7" third baseman. It just, doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, again, if you need him in the lineup, then have him DH at this point is my thought.
Yep. Javier Assad, who we were so excited about after the World Baseball Classic and spring training he came into the game in the 6th. He gave up 2 singles, a double, a triple. That puts the game out of reach with the Cubs down 8-2. So Taillon pitched 5 innings. He gave up 6 hits, 5 runs, but only 3 of them earned, 1 walk and 7 Ks. So I felt like, especially like after the first 2 innings, he really kind of got into a groove. Just the defense really let him down.
Yes, and that can have an effect on you out there on the mound, right? I mean, if the defense is playing poorly behind you, you gotta try to block it out. But I get why guys get frazzled by the bad defense behind them.
Yeah, Saad went 3 innings. He gave up 4 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, and 3 Ks. Merriweather pitched a scoreless inning, but the offense only scored 2 runs on 7 hits. Those 2 runs coming off the bats of Edwin Rios. Nico had a bad game, unusually bad game offensively. He was 0 for 3, and he hit into 2 double plays. Swanson was 0 for 4. The Cubs were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position. The team left 6 men on base. But, Dustin, I keep going back to this idea of right field, and I don't think people understand how difficult it is to play right field at Wrigley Field, to play any of the outfield in Wrigley, to be honest, but right field especially. And over the years, we've had some fantastic right fielders, whether you're talking about Jason Hayward or whether you're talking about Andre Dawson or just great guys. It is hard with the wind and the sun. It takes a lot of time. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, Trey Mancini, he's played a couple games in outfield in his career. We can put him out there, and especially in April, and think that that's going to be easy. It really isn't. And so that play, and I'm going back to the Miles Mastrobuoni play, I want to say against the Brewers, certain things that it's just not easy to get that done. And I guess for me, I felt that Nelson Velasquez was a guy, if you've been listening to this podcast, he's been a guy that I felt that he never got, when he came up last season, he didn't get the starts that he needed to really kind of get into a groove. And that's why, like I said, I have no problem with Morel down in the minors or something like that. To me, I'm looking at Nelson Velasquez, and he just he was named the minor league player of the week. Okay. And so I'm just trying to figure out why this guy who, just didn't get a shot on that one right here. That's the thing that I guess just kind of bothered me, is that I would have loved to have seen Nelson Velasquez up there. He has power. He's a good right fielder. I thought messing around with this whole Mastrobuoni and trying Mancini, I don't want to see him in right anymore. If it is
no more Mancini, no more Mancini in right field. I appreciate the fact that he's willing to do whatever they ask and play wherever they ask him to go. I really appreciate that. He's a wonderful teammate. I'm sure he's great in the clubhouse, but you got to keep this guy healthy. He does not need to be out there looking awful out in right field.
And again, I mean, you need defense. You need good defense. That's what this team is built on, is pitching and defense, and not making mistakes on the bases, playing really like you saw on Saturday, right? Taking advantage of other teams' errors, trying to go from first to third as much as you can. You've seen that a lot this year with the shift gone and a lot more singles. That's what's going to make this team successful. But if you're going to sit there and, like I said, only 2 errors on the box scores, but I definitely say that there were definitely 3 errors in that game. You're going to lose every time. This team doesn't have the offensive firepower to overcome those type of mistakes, and so it's run prevention and bullpen, and they that's what prevented them from getting the sweep. And again, Nick Magical, hats off to the guy. I mean, doing everything he can, but you sometimes you just can't put a square peg in a round hole. You know what I mean? He's a second baseman. That's what he is. And he's a guy that's really good at contacting and making hits. And like you said, Dustin, if he's a designated hitter, fine. I mean, is Edwin Rios that bad of a third baseman that he can't play third? I thought that's what he does.
Right. These are questions that need to be asked. I guess we have to stay positive because they did win their first series of the year. But I think these are very good questions that you and I are both bringing up after what we saw on Sunday. This is the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season 2, episode 26. Cubs rock the Rangers. And in this segment, Crawly interviews Sam Weiderhaft, the play-by-play announcer of the Myrtle Beach Pelicans.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, we have the play-by-play announcer for your Myrtle Beach Pelicans, Sam Weiderhaft. How are you doing, Sam?
Crawly, I'm doing great. Back to baseball. I mean, just so exciting to actually be back to it after a long off season, and had 2 really great games in Myrtle Beach. So excited to talk about it with you.
Yeah, we were talking off the air a little bit. We just missed each other at spring training, but it looked like you had a blast out there. How fun is it for you to kind of see some of the players that you've over the years have come through Myrtle Beach, and how enjoyable is it for you to kind of see where they've progressed to so far?
It was, for me, I kind of describe it as a really rewarding experience, right? Because you go there and you see all these guys that you've broadcasted in the past that have really made improvements throughout their professional careers. And you just catch up. And there were so many guys that, I'd just be hanging around at batting practice and just talking with and figuring out how the offseason was and kind of what they've been working on and how their family's doing and all that. So just really cool how everybody was in one place that, I've kind of gotten to know throughout the past 2 years that I've been the Pelicans announcer. And yeah, just the spring training experience in general, super fun. Everybody was just in a really good mood. There were smiles all over the place, and it was just an unforgettable trip. So Mesa is a special place, and hopefully get to do it again.
Absolutely. So let's talk about last season for a minute here. I know we're in 2023, but 2022 was an exciting one for the Birds. Went 47-19 in the first half. A lot of exciting victories, a lot of talented players. Second half, and this is kind of the hard thing though, is that guys get promoted and the team has to kind of like refocus. They went 31-34, but because of the first half, you guys got to face the Charleston River Dogs in the postseason. What were your favorite memories from last season as far as looking back at 2022?
Oh, Crawly, there were so many, man. I mean, you talk about the success in that first half, and when you win that many games, you're right. I mean, that's going to be a lot of promotions. But I think C and Pete Crow Armstrong, Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, all in the same starting lineup is something that I'll remember for a long time. I think the favorite memories were our two combined no hitters that we threw at Pelicans ballpark. One was on May 1st. Adam Lasky, Jake Reindl, Walker Powell threw that first one against the Columbia Fireflies. And then July 17th, it was 5 different pitchers against the Fayetteville Woodpeckers. But just to call one no-hitter in your lifetime is something that I never thought I'd do. And then to call 2 within 2.5 months was just awesome. So those were the first 2 ever thrown at Pelicans ballparks that had never even happened before. But those were kind of the feathers in my cap from last year. But so much success. So many great players came through Myrtle Beach last season. And the wins, especially in that first half, really showed for it.
Well, it seems like calling no hitters kind of runs in the family business, right? Congratulations, right? Your brother got to call one the other day.
He did. He did Purdue and Wisconsin softball, and the Wisconsin pitcher threw a no hitter. I think it was the 11th in program history, so he got to have a no hitter call. It was awesome.
All right. Well, maybe I know we're recording this on Easter Sunday. Maybe some bragging rights for the two of you. You could talk about it. So
right.
Let's take a look at the 2023 Pelicans, right? So, I kind of trying to, for people that aren't aware of who's on the team, it's an interesting mix of players here. I wanted to look at the starters really quick first, right? You guys played your first game Thursday night. You're on Marquee, which I know how much you guys love playing on Marquee. And Grant Kipp was your starter. So Kipp pitched at Yale and also in the Cape Cod League. What can you tell us about Kipp?
Yeah, Grant was signed as an undrafted free agent in August of last year and came to us later that month. So he kind of got thrown into the fire. He was pitching in the Cape Cod Baseball League in July, and the next thing you know, he's pitching in the Carolina League playoffs just a few short weeks later. So he got thrown into the fire. But Grant is a really awesome dude, really nice guy. He's tall. He's got a lot of size to him, so that traditional starting pitcher build. But you're right, comes out of Yale, threw pretty decent there. He's got a good fastball, really good changeup from what I've seen. In the few starts that he's had with us with the Pelicans last year and this year. The opening night struggled a little bit, had some errors in the field, but he kind of kept himself contained, only went about 3 innings. So those starters are going to be kind of limited, especially early in the season, to going short inning starts. But Grant went 3 innings. We'll see if he gets stretched out longer in his next one. But I like what I've seen from him so far, and hopefully he gets to improve throughout this year.
Another starter that you guys picked up from the Cape Cod League who went on Saturday, I believe, Brody McCullough threw 3.2 innings of scoreless ball. You guys won game 2, 13-1. That was some fire there, huh?
Yeah, well, we got a lot of help from the lineup that game, that's for sure. But Brody was great. I mean, he threw 3 2/3, struck out 5. And the one thing about Brody, if you look at his college numbers at Wingate Division II, his strikeout to walk ratio is just unfathomable. I mean, the guy just fills up the zone. His fastball was working. His off-speed pitch was working in his first start a couple days ago. So, yeah, he's going to be a fun guy to watch throughout the season, but he just knows how to throw strikes. And that was the thing that, last year you talk about the second half, we kind of, struggled a little bit because we had some new players coming up that were inexperienced, and a lot of the pitchers were struggling with location. Brody was not. Brody came out of the bullpen, and I believe 5 games in 2022 at the end of that year, and was just really consistent. And he showed that again just a few days ago in his first start. So really looking forward to what Brody's got in 2023.
Now, unfortunately, the game was rained out on Sunday. Did you guys get the probables for that game? Who was supposed to pitch?
Yeah, Cade Horton was going to go. It was Saturday got postponed, and Cade was going to go for that Saturday game. So he got pushed back in the rotation now. I think he's going, I think Friday or Saturday next week, just because of his preparation. But yeah, was really looking forward to seeing him on the mound for the first time. Unfortunately, that's going to happen in Lynchburg now. But we've heard so much about him. The first round pick by the Cubs, 7th overall, a nasty slider, really broke onto the scene in the College World Series last year at Oklahoma. So yeah, I'm excited that we got him, right? And he gets to start his Cubs organization tenure in Myrtle Beach. And now it's going to be just seeing how he improves throughout the year.
Yeah, I was talking to your brethren, BK and Max from South Bend, and they were among a group of people. I think Jim Callis was there that went to see, the first pitches that he threw in Arizona, and
Mhm.
just I guess kind of like the electricity in the air when he was throwing those first pitches. Everybody was just kind of watching and stopping what they were doing. So that's got to be really exciting for you.
It is, and I just think Cade's story is so interesting, right? A two-way player at Oklahoma, he gets hurt in 2021, doesn't play, and then just bursts on the scene at the Big 12 tournament with that slider that he learned like recently. That becomes a big pitch, makes him a few $1 million, and then now he's here in the Cubs organization, and there's just so much electricity that's surrounding him. So yeah, really excited to see him in a Pelicans uniform.
Now, who else do you think is going to fill out the other spots in the rotation? Who's kind of in the mix for that right now?
Yeah, so we'll have Nick Hull. Hull was a draft pick in 2022 out of Grand Canyon. So he's going to start next week for the first time. And then Michael Arias, who actually came to the Cubs as a shortstop. He was an infielder. They converted him to a pitcher a few years back. He came out of the bullpen a few times, or actually, I think he started one game last year with us at the very end of the year. So back in a Pelicans uniform. And when I was in Mesa around the complex talking with people of the organization, there's a lot of hope with Michael Arias' fastball. He's a high 90s thrower, a lot of velocity, and electric was kind of the word that people used to describe his arm. So we'll see what happens when he comes out for his first start.
Now, I would say as far as the infield concerned, everybody knows the big name being Christian Hernandez at short. He was 10th ranked prospect right now for the Cubs, 2021 international free agent. This is going to be kind of obviously not the Arizona league that you have, but this is really going to be kind of interesting to see how Christian does. I know how difficult it is, and pitching kind of dominates as far as in Myrtle Beach as far as your league is concerned. But how excited are you to kind of get to see Christian Hernandez?
I'm looking forward to just seeing him improve, right? I mean, it's, didn't hit great in the Arizona Complex League last year. His numbers aren't great, but I mean, with Arizona, you can't really look at numbers because there's just so many factors that go into the ACL. And guys are working on different things. It's just a totally different ball game out there. But yeah, Christian playing with fans in the ballpark, playing under lights really for the first time ever in his career, it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. He's a really young guy, just 19 years old. So a lot to learn from him. He did get his first hit in his second game on Friday, so got to see that contact a little bit. Made a great throw over at short. So his first game he struggled, had two throwing errors, and then comes back on Friday and then makes a backhanded play, throws to first, shows off that arm, and just kind of got the stadium talking about him. So yeah, just to see the way that he improves and kind of learns things throughout the year is going to be something that's intriguing for us to see.
Another guy that Cub fans are familiar with, Reggie Preciado. He was involved in the Yu Darvish trade. He was with you guys last year, but had some knee injuries, so he's going to start out in Myrtle Beach this year. But whenever you have a guy that's traded, like for a Yu Darvish type, there's always some interest in what he can do.
There is, and I think we've had every single prospect in that Yu Darvish trade. Owen Casey, Yeyes and Santana, Preciado, all come through Myrtle Beach. But Preciado has really, really improved in spring training in the offseason. He spent the entire offseason in Mesa. He said he went home for a little bit for Christmas, but the rest of it, he was in Arizona just working and trying to get better. That first year, just swung and missed too much. He was chasing balls out of the zone, which is typical for a player his age and the experience level he had. But he started at third base. So he didn't play any third base last year for us. Starts at third base on opening night, has a great game, almost hits his first home run of the year. But the swing is looking just totally different. He's looking a lot more confident. And just talking to him, he just feels a lot better about what the season's going to hold. And the work that he put in Arizona in the offseason is looking like it's going to pay off this year.
And Pedro Ramirez then would probably take second base for the most part?
Yeah. Pedro, he started at second base the past two games. And he's a guy that came to us at the very end of last year, played 10 games. But the numbers that you saw, I mean, he had 41 at-bats and only struck out 6 times. And he was 18 years old in Myrtle Beach. So just incredibly mature at the plate. And he's gotten off to a great start. Back-to-back 2-hit games in the first 2 games of 2023. And talking with our manager, Buddy Bailey, Pedro's a player that people are really, really looking forward to. And there's a lot of hope in that bat. He's got really good contact skills and just a great fielder at second base too.
And then at first, you got a guy that has a little bit of pop in Felix Stevens. That to me is something I just want to kind of really be paying attention to.
Yeah, Felix is a big guy. I mean, just a ton of size. I think he's 6'5" or 6'6" at this point. hit 11 home runs for us last year. That was tied for third on the team. And Felix just goes the other way a lot with his power, which I think is really, really impressive. I think more than half of his home runs last year went to right field. So he's got power. He can do it from wherever, and he'll be at first base. But we also saw Moises Ballesteros, who is, used to catching. He played first base for us on Friday night for the first game in, I believe, 2 years when he was playing in the Dominican Summer League. So Ballesteros could get some time at that corner infield spot as well, and he's got a ton of pop in that bat too. And there's a lot of hope in what he can do for this year as well. He's a very exciting player, but I think Felix will get a majority of those reps at first in 2023.
Yeah, you talked about Moises, so he's probably going to be the primary catcher and a lot of fun. But then you have Miguel Pabon, who's a converted infielder and going to try his luck out at the catching position. What did you see from the other day? Did he start the other day on Friday?
He started on Friday, and you're right. So for Pabon, this is his first season as a full-time catcher. He began that transition last year in the Arizona Complex League, and now he's full-time catching and just made 2 incredible catches behind the plate in his first game at catcher in a Pelicans uniform. One was directly behind the plate, right in front of the screen, and he jumped to his left side to make the catch. The other one was right by the steps of the Charleston River Dogs dugout down the third base line. He's right by the railing and just makes a great catch there. So a very good first impression. Buddy Bailey, who was a former catcher, now our manager and a longtime minor league manager, had a lot of great things to say about Miguel. He thinks that Miguel's got a manager's future in his future himself. But yeah, I think Miguel's a great guy. I've talked to him a lot in the past couple of days, and just had a great first impression behind the plate.
Well, that's high praise coming from a guy like Buddy Bailey. So
that's right.
In the outfield, Christian Franklin will be manning center field then?
Yeah, Christian's been in center field for 2 games. We also have Parker Chambers. He's a former Coastal Carolina Chanticleer, which is really cool. He went to college about 20 minutes away from Pelicans ballpark, but he got some reps in center field a little bit last year. He was also in left a little bit as well, but Parker was the DH on Friday in his first start. But yeah, Christian Franklin, a 2021 draft pick, was out in 2022 with an injury, so excited to see him back. He's also made a lot of improvements and just a really quick player. I mean, he can cover a lot of ground in center field, so he's an exciting player to watch.
And then Andy Garriola, he's in left field. 6 RBIs in Saturday's game. He went off.
Yeah, hello Garriola, right? I mean, just what a start in 2023. He was close to 8 because he almost had 2 grand slams. His first at bat in the first inning, bases loaded, hits a double, but it hit off the very top of that wall in right center field. So that was close. And then he comes up in the 4th and knocks a grand slam, just a line drive to left field. Opening night, he had a great catch, jumping forward in left field to make the play. He's also stolen a base. So, I mean, I can't say enough about what Garriola has done the first 2 games, and just he's setting the bar pretty high for what's going to happen this year in left field, that's for sure. But a really big player, brings a ton of size, a lot of power, and you can't start the year any better than that.
And what about Jefferson Encarnacion? Looks like he's going to get the majority of the playing time in right field.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's looking like in the first 2 games. Jefferson played his first game since 2019 on opening night on Thursday night this past week. He's dealt with just injuries galore, obviously the COVID season, but he's just excited to get back on the field. He was a Rule 5 selection from the Phillies organization this past year. So Encarnacion had a big game on Friday night. The whole lineup really had a big game, but Encarnacion, a multi-hit game with a triple in there as well. So yeah, we'll see what he does in right field for the Pelicans this year.
Now, what about out of the bullpen? Is there anybody that you've been kind of watching that you're like, oh my God, man, that guy's throwing some heat or really impressive stuff so far?
Yeah, we've had a couple of impressive arms. Marino Santi kind of comes to mind. He threw 3 innings on opening night, a really young pitcher, but 3 innings out of the bullpen, and his curveball just looked incredible. And you look at Santi's numbers in the Dominican Summer League, the Arizona Complex League, it's pretty clear that he struggled with location, but that was not the case in his very first single A game on opening night a few nights ago. So Santi came out of the bullpen, was really good. We also had Kevin Valdez come out of the bullpen on Friday night, and just the velocity was there. He threw 3 innings and got the win in that game as well. Angel Gonzalez was a Pelican last year, had a ton of appearances. He's back with the Pelicans this year. I mean, the fastball was hitting 97, 98 in his first bullpen appearance of the season, which is great to see. So those are a few names. We've seen, I believe, 3 bullpen pitchers come out of the bullpen in the first 2 games. So still a few more guys to go. But it's looking like a pretty good mix on the pitching staff of experience, with also some young, fresh talent as well. So just looking forward to what's, seeing what they can do.
So I was, when I was in spring training, I like to kind of hang out in the backfields a little bit and just kind of, talk to some people and see what's going on. A lot of smart people out in the backfields.
Yeah.
I do a double take. I'm like, what is Christopher Morel doing in the backfields? And it turns out that it was his brother, Raphael. And oh my God, do those guys look alike? But it seems like they're also both infielders and outfielders that can play multiple positions.
Yeah, we'll see where Morel's going to go. I mean, he was the DH for our first game, and then at third base in the second game. But I mean, you're right, dude. They're just identical, right? They got the same smile. Like, it's really cool to see. But yeah, he might be filling a few spots for us this year. Had a pretty solid game on Friday night with the rest of the lineup. So it's always cool when you get a big leaguer's brother on your team. That's for sure.
And so one thing I do want to tell all our listeners, and I don't know, I'm a season ticket holder for the Cubs. And because of that, this is the first time that they're doing this year. Any season ticket holder gets the MLB TV package. And for the first time, you get all the minor league games. So that, is just really a great perk for being a season ticket holder. But if you don't have MLB TV, just kind of something to kick around, because the Cubs minor leagues, are just so interesting right now. If you're somebody that really loves baseball, especially with 120 games with the Cubs or whatever, you can always kind of catch the Pelican games or Iowa or South Bend or, just all the teams. It's just a lot of fun.
It is. And what the Cubs slogan is, next starts here, right? So we're kind of taking that in Myrtle Beach. Next starts here, because you're watching these guys really make their Cubs organization debut for a lot of them in a Pelicans uniform. And I just think it's great. The whole package is really cool. And, I find myself hopping around minor league games every once in a while. I watch Iowa pretty often because Iowa plays a lot of day games. So I'll be watching Alex Cohen and the iCubs quite a bit this year. But yeah, just more exposure for these guys, the better. Obviously, going on the Marquee Sports Network, we love doing that and showcasing these young top prospects to the Cubs fandom. But yeah, just love getting these guys on the screen and just making their Cubs organization debut and introducing them to Cubs fans.
One thing that Marquee also offers is the Road to Wrigley, which is kind of, if you tune in usually on Fridays, I believe, Lance Brozdowski and I think Elise Menaker, they literally just kind of go in and out of the game. So it's kind of, I think they took the idea from the NFL, but hell, who cares? It works, right? It's
such a cool show. Such a cool show. I just have such high praise for that show because the first one was on Friday and they sent me the full thing. So I watched a good amount of it. And I mean, there's a quad box where you could watch every single Cubs affiliate. And, they're hopping in, they're doing analysis. Lance knows everything about every single player. Elise Menaker is great. They had Jim Callis on as well. So if you really want to be well-versed in the Cubs farm system, that show is what's for you. And they're doing that a lot this year. So we were a part of it on Friday night. We got Garriola's grand slam was on there. Parker Chambers, the first home run of 2023, that was on there. So yeah, just a really cool show, and Marquee does a great job with it.
And not only that, you got like the quad box going, but if something big is happening, say, at wherever, they just focus on the one box for a second and just maybe you come in and you catch an at bat, maybe it is a Christian Hernandez, amazing player. Maybe, maybe it's a Brennan Davis home run that they will focus on the one box. And that's what I like. It just kind of moves in and out and whips you around. And, you're not just watching one game. You get to see a lot of different players at a lot of different levels of baseball,
Well, somebody tweeted and said, I got Kevin Alcantara at bat on the right side. I got Pete Crow Armstrong at bat on the left side. Like that. It doesn't get much better than that. So yeah, absolutely love what Marquee's doing.
Well, Sam, everyone that I've talked to lately, I've been talking to a lot of people, and we just had a Justin Steele party at Club 400, and I was talking to Justin Steele's family, and I was talking to Kyle Hendricks' family, and every single person I had talked to, like when I mentioned Myrtle Beach, just gets like a big smile on their face. It's you guys do a great job down there, and you always got like a lot of fun promotions, and stuff for the families, and just great deals, like. I mean, come on, Taco Tuesdays and $3 tall boys. I'll take that any day of the week,
No, so will I. I mean, we just try and make it fun. Myrtle Beach is a fun city, and we try and encapsulate that in our game day experience. When I was back in Mesa, I talked to Ian Happ, I talked to David Bodie, and just reflecting on Myrtle Beach, and they just loved it. I actually talked with Ethan Roberts as well, and he called it the party at the beach. So the players love stopping in Myrtle Beach, and we love it too. I mean, we have a lot of fun at these games. And Crawly, a few months from now, you'll get to experience it as well.
I absolutely cannot wait. It is circled. This is a true story. I have a countdown on my phone so that I am literally counting the days, minutes, and hours before. There it is right there. There's the countdown. So the clock is going down, man. I am absolutely stoked. It should be fun. And not only that, you guys do a great job with social media. You know, some teams are a little slow to embrace it. Not you guys. Where would you say that people can kind of follow you and the team on social media so that they can kind of keep up with everything you guys got going on?
Yeah, no. So personally, I'm Sam_Weiderhaft on Twitter. I'm at Weiderhaft on Instagram, always posting stuff about the Pelicans and promoting our players. Twitter for the Pelicans is at Pelican Baseball. Instagram at Pelicans Baseball. TikTok, MB Pelicans. We've been really good on TikTok. We have a great team, a great front office staff that runs that stuff, and that's kind of where the exposure comes from. They just do an awesome job with that. So I've even been doing TikTok dances on the Myrtle Beach Pelicans TikTok. So if you want to see that, that's on there. We're on Facebook as well, Myrtle Beach Pelicans, kind of all over the place. But just trying to give fans as much content about these players as possible, and then having a little bit of fun as well.
I will tell you, your dance moves impressed me very much, Sam. I appreciate you coming out here, bud. Always fun talking some baseball, and looking forward to seeing a lot of fun in the sun out in Myrtle Beach, and hopefully, like I said, getting out there pretty soon.
Yes, sir. Me too. I'm looking forward to it, Crawly. Thanks for having me on. Happy Easter, man.
You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is segment 3, standings, rosters, and a preview for you guys. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. So, Crawly, after 8 games, where exactly are our Cubs?
Taking a look right here, you got the Brewers in first place at 7-2. How about the surprising Pittsburgh Pirates? Didn't they take 2 of 3 from our White Sox south side over there? Cubs and the Reds 4 of 4. I would have loved for them to get that one game in, but I'll digress. How about this, Dustin? St. Louis 3-6, still early, but that's very surprising. I
am surprised that they are 3-6, but sometimes maybe the coach, the manager, the message, he might already have a little bit of a revolt on his hands down there, getting a little, getting after his guys the way he did. Maybe they didn't appreciate that. We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they are all screwed up.
Yep. Hey, no problem. And Tyler O'Neill, I'd love to see him on a different team and not on the Cardinals. So we'll see what happens on that. As far as the injury report is concerned, Kyle Hendricks is slated to throw live batting practice in the team's facility in Arizona on Monday, so one step closer. Seiya Suzuki. We've been talking about this situation in right field. Both him and Brandon Hughes were playing out in Iowa, so that was great to see. Seiya played his first game on Saturday. He singled in his first at-bat, hit an RBI sac fly, drew a walk, and he played right field. On Sunday, Seiya DH'd and popped out in the first, struck out in the third, grounded out in the fifth, and then hit a single in the seventh. So he's got a couple hits and a sac fly. Still just getting his timing down. I don't think there's any – when they tell me he's ready, I'll believe he's ready. Don't want to rush this. I want this to be right. I don't want to see Seiya back on the IL again.
No, but they gotta be smarter, Crawly, as we talked about earlier in the podcast, exactly what they're doing with right field in his absence. And I think Christopher Morel would look awfully good out there right now.
The thing we talked about with Morel, and I encourage, if any of the listeners didn't listen to Andy Martinez, he did a phenomenal article for Marquee the other day talking about Morel. It's easy to say bring Morel up, but the reason he's not is not because of his defense as much as things that he has to improve on in hitting. And the numbers that Andy had in his article of after that 24-game on-base streak by Morel, he really, really struggled in the second half of the season last year. And part of it may have been not getting consistent at bats even then, but I like I said, Nelson Velasquez is a guy I think would have been a much better option than Chris Morel in right field. There's nobody that wants Chris Morel up here, but I want him up here for good. I want him up here as a permanent third baseman, in the near future. And I think that to do that, he has to be more successful. The strikeouts are just too much compared to, he doesn't give you enough power to justify the strikeouts. So when you look at Patrick Wisdom, he has a lot of strikeouts, but he's also going to hit you 25, 30 home runs. And Christopher Morel didn't show that last season. So let him get better without forcing the issue. You do have other guys other than that, Nelson Velasquez being the one, I think, that should have done that. But I think at this point in time, there's no point in making a move because I don't see Seiya being out of the lineup much longer. I would say maybe 3-4 games tops. That's absolute tops before Seiya's back in Chicago.
All right, good to know. We'll take that. It's good to see that he's out in Iowa doing his thing, and bring him along slowly. That's fine. Just right field scares me a little bit right now. All right, so we've got
Brandon Hughes did make his first start on Saturday as well. Remember, Cubs do not have a left-hander in the bullpen. This was the guy that they were kind of depending on, him and Mark Leiter. Leiter's a righty, but has great numbers against lefties. But, he pitched 1 inning. He gave up 2 hits, a walk, got a strikeout. I mean, you had the bases loaded, but he had the strikeout and a double play to get out of the inning. But Brandon Hughes is a guy that I think really he's not somebody that comes to your mind right away, but I think he's an integral part of this bullpen, and they really need him to be looking good and ready to play.
No doubt about it. I think you're 100% spot on about Brandon Hughes with that one, Crawly. All right, so today the Mariners coming into Wrigley Field, 3-game set, and you're going to be there tonight, right?
Yep, I will be at Wrigley Field. I'm very excited. I'll be in my seats over on the left field side, first row. So, I was, sometimes you kind of like try to figure out the games based on the rotation. I was hoping to get a Wisniewski start. Unfortunately, the rain out means I get a Smiley start, but we'll take it. The Mariners did get off to a slow start. They're 4-6 right now after, making the postseason last year, but they just took 2 out of 3 from the Cleveland Guardians this weekend. They almost swept. They lost an extra inning game on Sunday. Good thing is the Cubs took 2 out of 3 against the Rangers. So, both teams having a good weekend. So, let's see what gives here, right?
Let's see what gives. Let's hopefully another series win. But I think tonight's a very important game and an important start for Drew Smyly.
Yeah, trying to bounce back from an awful start last time against the Reds. He went 4.2 innings. He gave up 6 runs on 9 hits, 2 walks, only 3 strikeouts. So, I mean, this is a guy that, the Cubs are really focusing on. To me, on paper, he looks like a great 4th starter. Okay, let's throw out spring training numbers because they don't mean anything. But it does make you worry when all of a sudden, okay, now it's not spring training and the numbers look exactly like they did for Drew, which isn't that good.
Yeah, not good, not nearly good enough. I mean, that's the bottom line. Not nearly good enough.
Right. He's going to have to do better than 4.2 innings and 6 runs, especially because on the other side, you have Luis Castillo on the bump for the Mariners. We all remember Luis Castillo. Remember, Seattle made a huge trade last season with the Cincinnati Reds. So you're going to see a lot of familiar names on the Seattle team. And, hopefully, the Cubs can get to Luis Castillo. But he started 2 games, and just like Stroman, he hasn't given up a run in 11.2 innings and has struck out 12 batters. Now, the Cubs have some experience against Castillo, especially Ian Happ. He has 25 at-bats and has hit 320 against Castillo, so that's a good thing. Eric Hosmer has 16 at-bats, hit 625. Nico Horner, nowhere near as much, 6 at-bats, 667. And I'm looking at Swanson with 11 at-bats, 273, which is still a pretty decent average over, those amount of at-bats. So,
looks pretty promising on paper, Crawly. Now they just got to go out and execute, right?
Right. Now, as far as Seattle versus Drew Smyly, not a lot of guys have too much experience, too many at-bats against them. But, I look at this, Teoscar Hernandez is a really good hitter. Old friend Tommy La Stella, only 4 at-bats, but of course hitting 500 because that's what Tommy La Stella does, right? He falls out of bed and hits 500. So that's 3 a.m. Tommy.
3 a.m. Tommy is the old manager nicknamed him very famously. Yeah.
And so Tuesday night, that'll be the Hayden Wisniewski start. He went 4.2 innings, gave up 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 4 Ks versus the Reds. I got a feeling he's going to be fired up to get back out there and show the Cub fans what he has. He didn't get the loss. Luckily, the Cubs offense took him off the hook for that one. But he was frustrated. He was happy with the win, but frustrated with the start. So I think that is going to be a good one. The other thing that Wisniewski has in his favor is that no Mariner has ever seen him pitch, at least at the major league level. So nobody has any at-bats against him. So advantage Cubs on that one. The Mariners are going to counter with Chris Flexen, who's 0-1 on the season, but has pitched really well. In his first start against the Angels, went 5 innings pitched and gave up 2 hits and 2 runs and took the loss. And in the next game against the Guardians, he went 4 innings pitch and gave up 1 run on 4 hits for a no decision. The Cubs have a little bit of experience against Flexen, not much. Looking at it right here, Hosmer had 5 at-bats, hit 400 against him, and Mancini, 6 at-bats, 333. Swanson in 4 at-bats, 500. So small sample size, but really kind of looking, try to, at least they have something against them as opposed to Seattle, who hasn't seen Hayden at all.
Yep, absolutely. And then we've got the final on Wednesday, right?
Final on Wednesday, and Marcus Stroman takes the ball. We talked earlier about how great Marcus has done. 12 innings against the Brewers and Rangers and has given up 0 runs. Seattle is countering with Logan Gilbert, a young righty who hasn't given up a ton of runs. He started 2 games so far, ironically, both of them against the Cleveland Guardians. First time he went 6 innings pitch and gave up a run on 4 hits, while the second time he went 4 innings and gave up 3 runs and 6 hits. So, I'm just kind of looking at this here. When we look at Seattle versus Stroman, the only one that has a lot of at-bats versus Stroh is what Tommy La Stella has 12 at-bats and hits 250, which nothing that great. And then I don't know if who can do the best Pat Hughes, Eugenio Suarez impersonation, but Eugenio Suarez is on the team, 13 at-bats, 231. But you know me, man, I get paranoid about Cub killers, and Eugenio Suarez was always someone that gave the Cubs fits.
Yep, absolutely he has. All right, so quick prediction on this one, Crawly. 2 out of 3, 1 out of 3. What are you thinking?
This one's a tough one. I believe this is going to be a competitive series. I'm going to stay positive and say that the Cubs are going to bounce back from a bad start. And I'm really, like I said, hoping to see the best defensive lineup that I could see out there. But I would say that I would go with the Cubs taking 2 of 3 would be what I would say.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I believe 2 out of 3 and a little meatloaf for the Cubbies as the Mariners will exit town. All right, Crawly, who's hot, who's not?
All right, looking at who's hot, who's not. Ian Happ, 6 for 15 with 2 doubles and 5 RBIs in the last 7 days. Nico Horner, 7 for 18, 1 double, 5 runs. I know he had a bad game on Sunday. Let's hope that he kind of picks it up. Dansby Swanson starting to kind of come down to earth. He was absolutely on a tear. He's 2 for 15 with no extra base hits in the last week. So let's hope Dansby can kind of get hot.
Still playing good D's, good on the bases. I'm not going to worry yet.
No, and that's and what you're saying is and also the intangibles. But just when you look at him on defense, it's absolutely the amount of plays, the amount of runs that he saves, the amount of pitches he saves the pitchers. It's just so key, so vital. And so, you just like to see him kind of get back to, he was swinging the bat really well early on. Let's see him kind of get back there, right?
All right, the Mariners, who's hot and who's cold for them?
Eugenio Suarez. I knew it. He saw the Cubs on the schedule, started licking his lips, started heating up. He's 9 for 22 with 4 RBIs in the last week. Ty Francis is 7 for 22 with 3 doubles and 6 runs. On the not side for them, though, Mr. Fantasy Football, I'm going to punch you, Colton Wong, is 1 for 14 with 4 Ks. So he's another guy that's given the Cubs pitching, fits in the past, but that is the past. Let's hope that I like the fact, I'm a little nervous about tonight. Like I said, I'm going for the game. I've been to 3 Cubs games, 2 in Chicago, 1 with the Iowa Cubs. I'm 3-0, but putting it on the line here for Drew Smiley. So I'm hoping he really comes through clutch for me.
Well, I hope they win for you, and I hope they win for everybody else. So we've got you and I both think they'll take 2 of 3 in this one. Crawly, enjoy the time out at Wrigley Field tonight. That's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow the socials, Fly the W on Facebook, Fly the W 670 Instagram. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com. And now you can watch us on YouTube by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Again, Crawly, enjoy the game tonight. Get us a W, and we'll be back midweek talking Cubs.
Absolutely. And if you're listening to the game, listening to Pat and Ron on 670 The Score, and you hear someone say, "Go Cubs," that's me.